Well, good Friday noon to you. Welcome to High Noon Club. We're glad to have you folks with us. How many first-time visitors do we have here today? Just 2, 3. So the rest of them are old-timers. Good. Glad to have you with us. Let's stand up for a few minutes and we'll have our opening. We're going to pray and say a pledge to the flag, and then we'll get started with our Benny Reed. Would you mind opening us in prayer today?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together as fellow citizens of our nation, of Oklahoma City. Father, you have blessed us immensely, and we thank you for those blessings that you granted to us. Most of all, Father, we thank you for your Son, Jesus, who, through the sacrifice that he made on the cross, cleanses each and every one of us and makes us perfect in your sight and acceptable. Father, now we ask that you bless the food that we have partaken. Also, we ask that you bless this meeting that we have today, that it will be beneficial to all present. Again, Father, we thank you for your Son, Jesus, for the freedoms that we enjoy here in America. We have been so blessed, and we thank you for those blessings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reed. How many vets in the room again today? How many of you were drafted? 1, 2. Thank you guys for not running off to Canada. We appreciate that. We thank you for your service. Let's pledge it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Have a seat. We're going to get started with our guests right away, but I want you to think about this. Does anybody have any comment or reflection on the events on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. of this past week? Anybody have any ideas? Anything you'd like to say about that? Business as usual. We're going to give you a chance to talk about that at the end of the meeting if there's time. So be prepared with your opinion. We'll give you a chance to wail on it just a little bit and say what you think. First of all, we have a guest. Reed, if you would come up again and introduce our guest and use this microphone, and while you're introducing him, we'll go get ready for you.
Again, my name is Reed, and it's my pleasure to introduce Kurt Foreman. Kurt is the Vice President of Economic Development at the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. Now, I've been a member of the Oklahoma City Chamber for over 20 years, and I serve on the Board of Advisors, and I get to hear presentations about economic development that most people don't have an opportunity to experience and see. But that's what Kurt's going to talk to you about today, is about his job, what he does at the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce to grow business. Economic development is about increasing the wealth of our community. And one example of that is, I was at a Rotary meeting and one of the VPs of Dell spoke. That's 2,000 jobs that's been brought into Oklahoma City since about 2004. And that's what we're about at the Chamber, what Kurt's about at the Chamber. Give you a little bit about his background. He graduated in 1986 from Franklin and Marshall College with a Bachelor of Arts degree in anthropology. Interesting. And government, double major. He got his MBA from Wake Forest University. And he has a 6-page resume, which Paul said be brief, so we'll go with that.
Someone made up something then, that's not there.
Come up and tell us about it, Kurt.
Well,
Jim Borders, would you get the lights for us, please?
Well, I'm pleased to be with you today. I'm new to Oklahoma. I've been here just literally over a year. I started last September. I moved here from Louisiana, but you can tell by my accent that I am not from there either. I'm the son of an Army chaplain, and my dad was in the service for 22 years. And we moved all over from Okinawa to Fort Benning to all sorts of places. And I've been in economic development for 21 years. I chose this field and really feel it's my calling to come be a part of it. In fact, I often joke that I feel sometimes like I'm the associate pastor of evangelism for the community, because my job is to go out and help people become believers that this is a place that they'd like to raise their families, they'd like to work and invest, and be the place that they make their home. And so I brought my family, my 4 kids and my wife with me to be a part of the great things going on here in the area. So what I wanted to share with you today is, and we have lots of great pictures. In fact, I'd like to also acknowledge one of my colleagues from our marketing and communication staff. Marcus Elwell is with us today too. And we are a team of 70 at the Chamber, so this is nothing we do is done alone, and we often work with lots of other groups. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about some of what I consider the good news of what's going on here in Oklahoma City, a little bit about how we do our work, because you might find it interesting, and then a little bit about some of the successes and sort of the trends that we see going on. And then I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but I'm always excited to talk to groups because I think what we do is a lot of fun. We get to help people at the end of the day when we go home to our families. Hopefully something we've done during the day has made someone else's life better. We might pass them or sit next to them at church. We might pass them in the grocery store. They may be in the carpool line picking up their children. But hopefully something we've done has meant that they have a better job or a job if they didn't have one, or that now their family can send someone to college or can buy a reliable vehicle. So I like the fact that what we do is real positive for the people of the communities we serve. So let's talk a little bit about what we do. Where do I need to aim this?
I need to put the mouse in the right place for you.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Terrific. You've probably heard of the Chamber. There are chambers in just about every community in the country. Some of us are very large, some of us are very small. But our chamber is one of the largest in the nation. We have over 5,000 members, all from the area here. We have been recognized regularly as one of the best chambers in the country. And we also are ranked in the top 10 in terms of a lot of factors, including size. We're one of the largest chambers. And if you think about it, Oklahoma City is not one of the 10 largest communities in the country. So that speaks a lot to the commitment and the engagement of the business community, from small businesses to large businesses, that they care about their community and want to be a part of what's going on. We opened our doors. You may have heard some of this before. I know none of you were there back then, but we opened our doors just 3 weeks after Oklahoma City was founded in 1889. And so we've been a part of the fabric of what's gone on here in central Oklahoma since things got started here. I made a decision to move here because word was getting out about the great things going on here, that we had our act together. And sometimes we look at ourselves harder than other people do, but the outside story was that people seemed to think there was something great going on here. I agree, that's why I brought my family. But people are starting to take notice of the good things going on in central Oklahoma and Oklahoma City, and they want to be a part of it. So whether it's the accolades, and I'll share a few of them with you in just a second, some of the rankings and things that come out regularly. But for many years probably, we were sort of that city we had a bushel basket over us, to use a biblical analogy. We were sort of that city on a hill, we were hiding ourselves. But I think now in the last couple decades and all, we've sort of taken that off and been proud about what's going on here, and people are taking notice. The OKC Thunder, who are getting started with their season. I was in France this summer with the governor and a few others talking to businesses at the Paris Air Show. Aviation is one of our largest sectors in our state. We were talking to companies about investing here in Oklahoma, and I was in Paris Airport, and within 3 minutes of getting off the airplane, I saw a Thunder hat walk by. So the Thunder are part of our ambassadorial team, if you will. Literally and figuratively, people all over the world know the Thunder. And they just played in England and Turkey in just the last couple weeks. So people are learning about Oklahoma City through our sports teams. And then also MAPS, and many of you probably have been here. How many of you have been here since the beginning of MAPS? Some of you may be transplants like I am, but maybe not. So you guys and our community has stepped forward in faith on many fronts to make things happen for ourselves. And that story is one that people all over the country, when I travel, they want to know more about how we've done it. What have we done? And it's a great story of self-reliance and the community stepping forward to do things for themselves and not wait for other people to do it for them. And then we've had a track record of economic success. One fact you might want to use when you're at other groups or meeting friends is that we are viewed, and this is statistically out there, for 25 of the last 31 months, we've had the lowest unemployment rate of any major metropolitan area in the country. And that goes back longer than that, but we've been number one for almost all of the last almost 3 years. And that's a testament again to the kinds of companies who are making commitments to do things here in our community and the kind of workforce we have and the kind of quality of life and work ethic we have here. People like that, and that it's making a difference in our numbers. And our current unemployment rate is about 4.7% with the latest numbers. So this is a little hard to read, but I'll highlight some of these for you. One that just literally came out this week. There's a group, the National Association of Home Builders, assessed all metro areas in the United States for how healthy their housing market was, what was going on in their market, and we were ranked number 3 out of 350 markets around the country. Only Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Hawaii were ranked more highly than us in terms of the robustness of our housing market, which I think is a great sign of health. We've also been ranked multiple times in the last few years as one of the fast-growing cities or as a boom town for the success of our economy. People like Bloomsburg and Forbes, good media organizations, top places for young adults. How many of you remember when that probably wasn't true? Young people were leaving our area to go somewhere else. Well, now we're increasingly being recognized as a place where young adults can get started in their career and have a great life and raise a family here, and that's increasingly becoming part of our messaging. And then best cities for good jobs. We all like not just jobs, but good jobs. And then one I'm really proud of, not because I did anything about it, but that we as a community were ranked number 2 in the country as a great place for a small business to be operating. And you're sitting, while this seems like a very large business, and it is a very large business, in terms of national rankings, H&H would be considered a small business, and we've just recognized it again with a group of other organizations as one of the fastest 50 growing companies in the area. And that's been something they've had many, many years. So we're even sitting amidst one of those successful companies that's making a difference here in the area. So let me talk a little bit about economic development. For many of you, economic development might be something you read in the paper about a new store coming to the area. There's been a lot on the media the last couple of days about different stores. A lot of those are rumors, not true necessarily. But that's always something that most of us feel tangibly, but what our team spends most of its time on are helping those employers either that are here already grow bigger, or those that are maybe considering it for the first time, to get them to consider and add jobs and investment here. And so we work on a whole portfolio of opportunities. So we focus on entrepreneurship and helping innovative companies, perhaps coming out of research at OU or OSU, maybe get established and create jobs here, maybe research jobs or scientist jobs. We work a lot. I have a team that does nothing but work with existing companies in the area. We work with well over 300 companies a year, helping them make sure that they have all the things that they need to be successful and grow. We go after new companies to the market. We always want more people to be here because we think that's a healthy economy if you have a mix of both. And we also have a person that does nothing but retail for the area. So she helps recruit retail to Oklahoma City. And we go after things that we don't have in the market. Rather than getting another sandwich shop, we might go after something that's never been here to try to get them to come. And then we have a research team that helps provide information to tell the story, and they support the chamber, but support probably 50 or 60 other organizations in the area with data about what's going on in our area. So entrepreneurship starts from everything from websites that are geared specifically to people who are getting started in business to make sure that they know about the different resources, perhaps at universities or other groups that are out there. There's a great group called I2E. You might want to have them come speak sometime. They were started by the state, but it's everything from angel networks. Angels are people who are willing to check from their personal resources to help start, maybe invest in a business idea, to all sorts of other advice and support to help entrepreneurs. And so we have a whole group of assets that are all pulled together in one place. We support that. We also go on the road to a big conference called BIO, which is the biotech sector. People come from all over the world to that conference, and we talk to them about Oklahoma. We also look for where are entrepreneurs having trouble and where can we bridge those gaps to make it easier for them. It's always about making it easier for business to be successful and to be profitable here in the area. On the business retention and expansion side, I mentioned earlier, we talk to over 300 businesses. We physically go call on over 300 businesses a year. We ask them about what their issues are. We try to communicate those issues to elected officials or to other business leaders. We also will support them and help them understand what kinds of state programs or other programs may be available that will support the kinds of things they're trying to accomplish. And we provide research, oftentimes data, that would be useful to them about their customers or their competitors. We can show them ways to look up that or find that information to help them be more successful. And if any of you are involved in any of these sectors, we'd love to work with you and help you. So we work with anyone. And on the recruitment side, our goal is usually to try to figure out how can we be more diverse as an economy. Many of you were here in the 80s and remember when the communities in the oil and gas patches had a real hard time. Not just a hard time, but a real hard time. Well, I think communities can learn lessons from that. And not that energy is not an important sector or one that we love to see grow here, but we want to make sure there's lots of other kinds of businesses so that as cycles happen, hopefully it makes our community less susceptible to wild fluctuations if we have a broad, diverse, like you would in your stock portfolio, or perhaps the kinds of things you do. Even in the way we eat or do things, we have to be diverse. We focus on firms that sell products outside the region to bring new dollars into the area. It's not just about us taking a dollar bill and passing it around the room, but what would happen here if someone sold a product to another place and those dollars came into our market. And then we look at retailers that we think would be good for the market as well. We also serve not just Oklahoma City, but a 10-county area. So we serve from Stillwater down to Purcell, Kingfisher to Shawnee, and all those communities in between. We support both the large urban communities as well as the small towns in that area. And our groups get together every month. There's about 50 of us that get together monthly. And we share data and we work together. We go on the road together because we think if something happens in El Reno or Yukon, that's beneficial to the area as much as that happens in near Edmond or down near Norman. The benefit, and probably all of you don't necessarily stay in the same neighborhood for everything. So people may live in Yukon and work in downtown, or they may live in Edmond and work in Norman. I wouldn't want that commute, but there probably are people who do that. But there's all sorts of things that happen when we work together. So let's talk about what's going on right now. Hopefully you can see this. We talked to our board about our pipeline of projects, the things we're working on. These are all projects that we are in dialogue with, either the company directly or someone who's representing them. They have told us that our area is somewhere that they would consider. We may be competing with multiple states or multiple communities. And right now we have 25 projects that we're working on. If you stack them all up, so to speak, and all the jobs happened at once, it would be over 15,000 jobs. It would be almost $400 million worth of new payroll. These are new jobs, not ones that are already here. A major amount of capital investment and a lot of building. So we do this not to see how big we are, but to see how things change over time, and also to give our leadership a sense of how busy we are at any point in time. So we're working on 25 projects right now, which I'm very excited about. Not all of them are going to happen, but if you think about it from a baseball standpoint, if you're trying to learn how to bat, and I throw 2 baseballs at you, you only have 2 chances to swing. But if I throw 25 baseballs at you, you're more likely to get better and better over time, and even if you don't have a better batting average, you're more likely to get more hits if you have more balls to throw. This one's even harder to read, I apologize. I wasn't sure how deep the room was. But this just gives you a sense of some of our successes over the last 5 years. In 2008, the companies we worked with told us that they were going to create 7,500 jobs in our area, and that's from companies adding a couple to companies adding a whole bunch, and almost $300 million of new payroll. It's gone up and down each year. That was about 47 projects. This year alone, just right now, we've had 170 companies tell us that they're going to create jobs and invest here in the market. Again, some of those may be someone just adding a couple, or putting in a new piece of machinery as investment. and others may be a very large investment. But so far this year, the companies we've worked with have told us that they're going to add almost 4,400 jobs and about $193 million worth of new payroll to the marketplace. So we don't control whether they do it or not. We simply report what they tell us, and over time, we hope that they will do what they say. And for the most part, people do. So we're excited, and we have a couple big announcements that will be happening, and I'm going to share with you a few of the successes from the past year in just a second. So, a few of these ones are names you've probably heard of. I tried to pick a smattering of different ones that I thought you might find interesting. How many of you had read or heard about General Electric choosing Oklahoma City? It was in the paper. Governor Fallon made the announcement with the chairman of GE. GE has picked us to be its next international research center for energy. We beat out places like Austin and Denver. They looked globally, not just in the United States, but we beat out great places. Those are great cities. And they chose Oklahoma City, and they will be building a state-of-the-art research center here, employing very highly paid scientists and researchers and development people. And they committed to about 125 jobs and $110 million worth of investment. But they also then, in the next breath, told us that none of their research centers are smaller than about 500 people. So that's not a commitment, but that's sort of based on, past experience. That should hopefully grow over time. Terex was just in the paper this week. Maybe some of you saw it. They're out on I-40. It's that where they built road construction equipment out here in Canadian County. It's in Oklahoma City, but on the way to Yukon. And they just announced that they're going to be investing and reinvigorating the plant and have the potential to create as many as 1,500 more manufacturing jobs for our community. So if someone tells you manufacturing is on the decline, that's just not true. There are lots of opportunities, and our market is a competitive one for those opportunities. OptumRx is a pharmacy benefit company. You might have a pharmacy benefit plan in your insurance or through Medicare or whatever that uses them. They're over near OU Medical Center. They're pharmacists and farm techs, and they just are adding 135 people, and they hire pharmacists and that sort of thing and review prescriptions that go to Walgreens or whatever to make sure they're being done properly. AT&T, you may have read, is adding 140 people to a customer operation up on Wireless Way, which is up off of Memorial, up near Quail Springs Mall. And obviously an AT&T is a big name, but they're adding and adding and adding on a regular basis. The American Cancer Society, probably one you wouldn't have thought of, but they have a major operation here. And they're in the midst of creating what they call a consolidated center for sort of shared services. Shared services would be maybe dealing with different people's billing or the donor relations accounting, different things, to help each of the cancer, the local cancer offices. There might be an American Cancer Society Oklahoma City, American Cancer Society Denver, San Francisco, Dallas, or whatever. Well, they're all going to use a team here in Oklahoma City, and they're adding about 135 jobs. They're headquartered in Atlanta, but chose Oklahoma City because of how cost-effective our location is and how central it is. And they're going to be centralizing everything from data entry to other things right here in Oklahoma City to serve the whole country. Orange Leaf frozen yogurt. How many of you will admit you've had Orange Leaf? They're headquartered here in Oklahoma City. I put that up mainly because you might not even know that. They're headquartered right up here near Quail Springs Mall. They have operations all over the country and are doing major expansion in the upper Midwest and Northeast right now. But the two guys who own the company were from here, had been in California, bought the business and decided to bring it home and operate it from home. So they are right here in Oklahoma City doing their work. And then Paycom, many of you may have passed their operation. They're in the midst of adding 667 jobs, building a second building. They're sort of along the turnpike, sort of west of Quail Springs a little ways. You'll see their building. They're building a second building. And they're one of the fastest growing companies in the United States based on a number of factors. And they were started right here in our area. So there's a lot of good things going on in our marketplace that we're excited about. So let me talk a little bit about what we think is going on and where it's headed. And this is not federal government conversation. This is more about our local economy. This is, the red line is the one you want to look at here. This is employment growth in the marketplace. And the real thing here is just to see that we've often tracked quite regularly with the U.S., but we're starting to really perform much better in the last few years than the rest of the country, and we think that's going to continue effectively into the future. There's a lot going on. This is percentage change and employment change, but read the red line, and the red line is going in a positive direction. This is employment, non-farm employment in our marketplace, and the line is going in a very positive direction, and we believe that there's no reason it won't continue to do that. From a federal statistical purpose, oil and gas is often put in the mining category, so we don't have a lot of mines here, but we do have a lot of oil and gas. And again, the trend has flattened out a little bit, but the trend is very positive for growth. Devon and a lot of our companies, you may have even seen in the paper today that Tom Ward has started another company. And so there's continuing change going on in that sector. Chaparral Energy just made major acquisitions of some property in other parts of the country to continue to grow their business as well. And then this is mainly sort of the growth of our domestic product. If we were a country rather than a city, how would you measure it? And again, and then the red line is personal income. You can see that our incomes are steadily going up. And I don't think that's by chance. I think it's because a lot of positive things are happening. And in fact, when we go out after jobs, we try to get jobs that pay more than the jobs already here, because we want families in our area to have a better and better life rather than just any job. So let's talk about how we market Oklahoma City. This is one of the fun things, is to get out and tell our story, that sort of evangelism piece, if you will. And our marketing communication team does a great job. Everything from publications or documents, brochures. We do a lot of great brochures and documents, what it looks like to be here. Many people have misperceptions of our area, including my family, until they came and visited during the more tornadoes, unfortunately. My parents had never been here, and my mom's offered to put a storm shelter in our garage. They came here from Pennsylvania, and they were a little bit startled. It didn't come near where I live, but they were a little startled. We go to trade shows, and we talk about the area at different trade shows, whether it's bio or for aerospace, things like that. We also have done a number of advertising campaigns to sort of show off what we think is great about the area. We do direct mail to key influencers, and we also have a whole program for people who are considering moving here. When Boeing announced that they were going to potentially bring hundreds and hundreds of jobs here, they have 1,700 people here now. When they closed their California operations, they were thinking about 1 in 10 were going to accept the move to Oklahoma City. We put a bunch of people on the plane, business leaders, realtors, bankers, and all sorts of people, spent a whole bunch of money, created programs to tell them what it was like to be here, and about 90% of their people came. And most of them love it here. We talk to them regularly, and the people love their lifestyle here. They may have had a tiny, tiny house in California, and now they have a big spread, or they're able to live without having to drive for an hour and a half in traffic to get to work, and they just love it here. So those kinds of things can make a difference. So if you ever know anyone who's thinking of moving here and doesn't know the area, one, you can be a good salesperson to them, but we have tools and resources on our websites that people can use to do that. And I was told I could talk for about 2 hours. Are you good with that? Is that okay? I'm just kidding. I'm almost done. And so it's
okay as long as you don't mind us leaving.
That's fine. I'm used to talking to an empty room, so that's okay. My kids don't even sit around when I talk. So we go after recruiting companies by all the means you would think would be out there. We also have a number of programs. We often invite customers or companies or conferences to be here, because if they come and experience Oklahoma City and stay in our hotels, that generates income for people, but also they get to experience. We had all the chambers. We had the American Chamber of Commerce executives here this summer. We had probably, Marcus, how many do we think we had? 500 or 600 chambers probably here from all over the country. Many of them had never been here, and they left saying, "You guys have a great city. They were at the Cox Center, and they got to see Bricktown, and they got to see all sorts of neat things going on, and they went back to their communities and lots of them sent notes back saying, you really have a neat place you live in. And again, we have lots and lots of websites. Many people get started in thinking about another place by looking online, and so we've got lots of things that have lots of pictures and videos about what it's like to be in our area. So we'd love to have you help us brag. We have a magazine called Velocity, which Marcus and his team work on, which I think is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. It's an electronic magazine. You literally can flip the pages like you're reading a magazine. And then there's videos. You can click on videos and it talks to you and tells you interesting things and shows you video clips. And our latest one just came out a couple weeks ago, and it's got a great story about the law school moving, OCU's law school moving into the building there in the center of Mid-City. And it's got Robert Henry talking about things like that. It's got all sorts of neat things that bring to life Central Oklahoma and Oklahoma City. So by all means that. And then we have a video channel. Thanks to the Chickasaw Nation and a lot of other people who have shared their resources with us, we have thousands and thousands of clips about what's going on here and what it looks like. Because sometimes, as you say, the picture can be more than 1,000 words or whatever the phrase is. Well, video clips will help people see what it's like here. So, if you know anyone who's thinking of moving here, maybe coming back, I like to hear that people's children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews or folks are thinking about moving back to the area. We certainly need their skill sets in the marketplace because there's a lot of neat things and companies needing great people. So give us a holler or go to a betterlifeokc.com, and it's a whole series of things. We have a weekly newsletter about things that are fun to do in the area that we send out to people. Because sometimes people will think, oh, there's nothing to do. I grew up, one of the times we moved around, I moved 28 times growing up, and we lived outside of New York City, and even there people said there's nothing to do. Well, there's lots to do. You may not be able to afford it, but there you couldn't afford it. But here, not only can we have it, we can afford it, and we don't have to spend 3 hours in the car to get there. So there's a lot of neat things to do, whether it's a festival, whether it's the zoo. My son just turned 18 this week, and his girlfriend's taking him to the zoo tomorrow. So hopefully she'll leave him there until he grows up a bit more and have him come back afterward. This isn't going to be video. My son won't see that, will he? So anyway, this is another of our great pictures of town. We have a great place. You're part of that reason. I think it's not about our buildings, although our buildings are gorgeous. It's about the people you meet in a community that make all the difference. So that's our secret weapon, is that we have great people, and not only at the chamber, but in our community, that when people meet them, they want to be a part of it. So I'd love to answer any questions, and I can stay after if people have things they want to ask me offline. I'm taking the rest of the day off, so I couldn't do anything better than be at high noon today, so I'm going to take the rest of the day off.
I have the first two questions.
Please, absolutely.
First of all, when you announce that a company like Boeing is coming in town, and you say they're bringing 1,500 jobs, but they're bringing 1,200 employees, that's kind of misguiding, making us believe that we're going to get to employ 1,500 people from Oklahoma, when like the research lab that you said is going to bring in all these professionals, doctors and people like that. They're not going to be from Oklahoma.
Some of them will. One of the reasons they chose Oklahoma City for GE, for example, is that they wanted a relationship, and actually David Morin and OU are going to be directly involved in the center, and OSU probably will be as well. But they wanted to be able to access the pipeline of petroleum engineers coming out of our schools. So maybe the first wave may be senior people. I'm not sure, and we don't require that, but let's say I was one of those employees and I came with the company. Well, unlike you who already own a house probably, or at least have an apartment or whatever and live here in the area, when I moved here I had to buy a house. I've bought 2 cars since I've moved here. I have 4 kids. I have 5 cars at my house now. I'm a car lot up north Oklahoma City. So I bought 2 cars. I bought a house. I've had to furnish the house. So that economic activity is positive for all our companies too. And then if they ever step out of those jobs, the future hires. Boeing has told us that they like the people in the area. They brought some with them, but they've added a lot of jobs that they've hired from the immediate area as well. So it's sort of a balancing act. People coming in spend a lot of money. People that get hired locally get a better job. And with our low unemployment rate, you need a balance of that, because we certainly could not fill 1,500 jobs for Boeing all from the local community. So I understand your point, but both have benefit to our community.
By the way, the bank owns the house I just live in.
I understand, mine too. It's gonna be 29 more years before it's my house.
The second question is, the Chamber of Commerce, you show all these really wonderful things that you're doing, and we appreciate those. It's great for the state and for the city. But oftentimes, I find that the Chamber will do things, including endorsing political candidates that are contrary to the conservative view of most Oklahomans.
Okay.
And they make a decision based on business rather than on the political climate. And I wonder if you can explain why that happens.
Sure, and unfortunately that's not my piece of the team, but I'll give you my best understanding. I don't believe we formally endorse candidates. We have a PAC. Many of you, that's my understanding, is that we don't formally, as a chamber, vote on candidates. We have a PAC, a political action committee, that members of the chamber can put money into individually. So if Reed or I wanted to give $100 to the PAC, and I'm not picking on you, Reed, you're the only one I know for sure, and I don't know whether you give to the PAC, but we raise about $50,000 a year from individuals with relative to the chamber, and then we have a committee that gives out money to candidates. In some cases, we've given out to both sides of the race, I believe, although that's not my area of expertise. But I understand, I've never in my time here seen us pull up a vote where we actually said, do you want to endorse Joe or do you want to endorse Jane? Now, our members may say something, but I don't believe we
kind of
formally do.
mirrors if you have a PAC that works within the realm of the chamber and they do send money out through the businesses, it's still under that group, and it's kind of the chamber supporting candidates, isn't it? If you really get serious about it.
Well, we're for a strong business climate that will allow people to make money and be successful here. So we do take positions on issues. I know we do that all the time. We have a whole legislative agenda that we will go talk to legislators about and share our opinion, just like everyone else can, on key issues, whether it's tax or whether it's a regulation that could make it harder. We work very hard and are actually involved in the lawsuit to get the workers' comp system changed, because that's a competitive disadvantage for Oklahoma versus nearly every other state in the United States. We're the only state that has a program the way we have it, and that's causing problems for our businesses to be as profitable as they could be. So I'm sure we have differences of opinion on individuals. I personally might have a difference of opinion with an issue, but there is a whole process that they go through to decide what those, particularly on the issue side, will be.
I'm Steve.
Yes, sir.
I'm not looking for any endorsements. But my question is about the Indian Cultural Center that's sitting over there. Is there any prospects or possibilities that could really be taken over by a private enterprise? Is there ways, or are there groups out there that you can go and talk to and say, look, we've got this thing, it's already here, we invested this, if you'll take it over, we'll, is that a workable kind of a solution for this thing? Because it seems like it's really at a stalemate now. And I'm always for private. I think private industry ought to be doing more than what the government's trying to do.
Well, I personally believe that as well. We have supported complete funding of that. In fact, we helped, as I understand it, Mr. Bennett and a number of other private sector leaders have pledged $40 million, and this is beyond, I don't know all the details, but I believe they pledged $40 million of private dollars to help finish the complex and get it up and running. I think it's a waste to have spent lots of money and then let something deteriorate. Again, that's not an area I focus on, but I think the chamber is supportive of it happening because we believe the visitors and the things that could come out of having that would create economic activity for our area.
But are there private companies out there that
There might be.
interested in that?
There might be. There may be private entities that could over time,
Okay.
but until the center's finished, I don't know that that's even a possibility. And I'm not suggesting that one group or another has to fund it, but that's a little outside of what I do every day. But It's a cool looking building. I have to explain what that hillside is and that white structure when people come to town who have never been here.
Is it like a dump site or something like that?
Once you explain what it's going to be, they understand.
A while back, my name's David. I read a book called The Great American Job Scam, and it said that the main reason why companies come, subsidies is like one of the last reasons.
Right.
And they say if they come for the subsidies, they'll leave for the subsidy. And if everything's equal and it's just a little bit more money, then what does it say about our city? Wouldn't it be better to lead the economic development or making the city better versus the actual, company subsidies? And like Chesapeake, the city just gave them a lot of money for quality jobs from the city standpoint. And also, Harold Hand is like thinking we're chumps for actually giving him money because he's going to create the jobs anyway. So why do we take all of our money and give it to the corporations for subsidies when we should just leave it in? I think we should leave it in the, in our pockets.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your view. The good news is that Oklahoma does not give everything away. There's not an incentive program, whether it's quality jobs or what the city calls strategic investment program, where they give away everything. We do what we call a return on investment analysis. So we figure out what the impact of, let's make up an example, 100 jobs coming here that aren't here now by a company and they're going to invest X and Y. We run that through a model to see what the likely tax revenues will be from a sales tax standpoint, from all the different pieces, and we look at that, and then if the leadership, and we don't make the decisions, we just run the analysis, but then we provide that analysis to the city, and then they make a decision through the trust, how much of that might they offer in return as a performance base. They only get it if they do what they say. They don't get it usually up front. In fact, I don't know, in the time I've been here, there's not a single one that got it up front. So they may get pledged. Let's say someone says, I'll create 100 jobs, and we may come back and say, okay, we will make $200,000 available to you to do the project. And many of them are small. They're not millions and millions, although there are some that way. But unless they deliver, they don't get those dollars till after they pay taxes. So let's use Chesapeake as an example. Perhaps, and there was a sheet in the paper a while ago that talked about how much they were told they might get.
But the main thing is if they were going to come anyway.
Hold on.
If they
talking to microphone, so everybody can hear.
If they were going to come anyway,
Right.
and you give them the money, isn't it an unnecessary giveaway?
How do we know if they're coming anyway?
Well,
I understand, but they have operations in multiple states.
Harold
So
Hand says he's going to create triple the number of jobs over the next X number of years. We know they're coming.
Okay.
He's going to create the jobs. I'm just saying, if they come only for the money and they're going to come anyway, how do you know this isn't just a totally unnecessary giveaway? It seems like almost nobody on city council is talking about this except Ed Shadid. And he's bringing it up. And it seems like he's more financially conservative than all the rest of them.
Exactly.
well, one is we're getting to a philosophical point. What my job is to do is to help companies access the resources that could be available to them. Jobs don't jobs are not going to be created because of incentives, but jobs will happen where we are because we offer a package that makes sense. And our package is not just incentives. That's always the last part of the discussion. If the labor market doesn't make sense and we don't have the kinds of people they need at their company, we're not the right place for them. If we don't have the real estate or land or the water or the electricity that they need, they're not coming. So let's say all those get stacked up. And it would be nice if every part of the country would just stop doing incentives, because then that would be nothing. But the reality is, we get to that stage and we're one of 2 or 3 communities still left in the mix. And our friends to the south in Texas have all these buckets of money. They have something called a 4A and 4B sales tax. They collect a half cent of sales tax, and it just builds up and builds up, and they just offer checks to get companies to come. That's different than the way we're doing things. What we do is they say, okay, I'm going to create 1,000 jobs. We say, based on the salary you've set, and if they're below a certain salary, they can't get an incentive at all. Doesn't matter whether they're nice or not, they don't. If they meet certain criteria, they can be offered the potential of an incentive, but the incentives are never higher And oftentimes they're much lower than the total benefit that the community is going to get. Which means some of these companies, the benefit is huge, just from, and all their employees buying stuff and doing all that. We factor all those things in. So let's say that we offer X. They don't get that money until they actually create the jobs. So I may say, I'm going to create 1,000 jobs, and 3 years from now, I've created 100. Well, I'll get the benefit of 100. The rest of it is gone until I create 1,000 jobs. So it may never, ever go out the door, and we never give them to the money up front. The money is given to them after the jobs are created, after those taxes are paid. So it's a much more conservative approach. I understand your opinion that you don't think incentives should be done at all, and that's a legitimate option. But in the case of right now, we've created a plan that makes people prove what they say, and then they get rewarded, rather than we'll reward you and hope you do what you say. But I agree with you, we never want to get in a situation where the only reason they're coming here is because we're writing a check to them. I think that makes a silly public policy, because the reality is, you're right, someone else will come to them. And I've done this kind of work in other markets where people literally have come, gotten a check, and then 3 years after that check's gone, someone else writes them a check and they move. Well, that's dumb for the company too, because they lose all their people. But I think we've done a good job of sort of balancing the seesaw generally. And again, I realize that that's my opinion of one. But I think we've done a good job of trying to safeguard that the public dollars are not being thrown away needlessly, because it's based on jobs being created, and until they're created, nothing happens.
Okay, next question.
Yes, sir.
Kurt, my name is Woody. I want to thank you for coming. What I want to ask, do these people that are coming into Oklahoma City and Oklahoma in general, companies, whatever, are they aware of what has made Oklahoma the way it is, our conservative values?
I think most of them do. There's always a diversity of people that come with any company. My experiences growing up may be different than your experiences growing up, but I think the fact that our state started from people who came here to make a difference for themselves and to do it for themselves, and that we've gone through really hard times and we're better for it, and that we like to not wait for people to do stuff for us. I think people view that beneficially, and I think that's part of the secret that's gotten out, that if you want to be about a place that's doing things for themselves, I mean, the whole MAPS thing, we're not borrowing money, we're taking our own dollars, and you may not agree with all the projects, but we're not borrowing money on a scary proposition. Until that money's in the bank, we don't do stuff. And that's I think, very admirable. Again, whether you like the specific things is different. But the fact that we didn't go borrow $800 million and hope we can pay it back, I think those messages resonate with people today. Woody, if you'd asked me that question 20 years ago, I don't know that everyone would have, but I think a lot of American businesses like the fact that we do things in a methodical, do it ourselves, we make good decisions for ourselves, hopefully. And I think that's part of what people like when they come visit. So thanks for the question.
I have another question on that same line.
Please.
Are you familiar with Agenda 21, and are you aware that the MAPS project is perfectly in line with the Agenda 21 project from the UN? Does that make any difference to you?
I'm not sure I follow, but I'd be happy to talk with you to learn more.
Do you know what Agenda 21 is?
I assume that's an international plan of some sort?
Yes.
So you mentioned the United Nations. So
Yes.
I'm guessing that Ron Norick did not have the United Nations in mind when the leadership came up with those ideas. And I'm not making fun of you. Honestly, I've met Mr. Norick. I sense that we'll probably not have to worry about him or worry about Kirk Humphreys, and I don't think we have to worry about Mick in that regard either. I'm guessing it's coincidental if there's any connection there. So, well,
It's
yes,
Plan OKC's documents look like they are printed from the Agenda 21 book. I mean, the same wording and
okay.
everything. Okay.
Yes, sir.
My name's Rick.
Hi,
I'm a
Rick.
member of the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association,
Okay.
and we work with our Congress people at the state level trying to get favorable laws written in that's favorable to the Second Amendment.
Okay,
We get our representatives to co-sponsor bills and everything. We're up there at the state capitol. And all of a sudden, we find that it didn't get through. And we dig a little deeper, and all of a sudden they said, well, the state senate shot it down. Well, we dig a little deeper, and we find out, well, why did they shoot it down? Oh, the chamber, pressure from the chamber.
okay.
We're getting tired of fighting you guys.
Well, and I'm not aware of our Second Amendment views. Now, remember, there's a state chamber, there's a Tulsa chamber, there's a greater Oklahoma City chamber. I'm sorry, you lived in Shreveport. Sometimes that pops up. Oklahoma City chamber, there's a South Oklahoma City chamber, there's a whole bunch of us. I would be happy to go back and find out and send a note through someone, but I'm not sure we focus on those issues. We tend to focus on business climate issues.
Since it's a state,
Right.
our people at the state level,
Right.
I'm assuming it's you guys.
I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I don't
Oklahoma
know.
City.
It might be the state chamber, but I'm not trying to throw them under the bus either. I have no idea. I've not heard any conversations about the Second Amendment during my time. I've been here 13 months. We try to stay away from social issues because we know those are issues that people have a variety of opinions. We try to focus on what will help businesses be profitable. And so it's usually about taxation, it's usually about things like workers' comp, or things that make it easier or harder for business people, from the person who does it by themselves to the person who has 9,000 employees, do that better.
Well, what the agenda for the state chamber is, wouldn't that be the same?
Well, we're not affiliated. We use the chamber name, but there's not a pecking order that a local chamber and then a regional chamber and then a state chamber and then the U.S. chamber. There's no affiliation. You guys could become the High Noon Chamber if you wanted to be. There's no licensing or anything of that name. So I apologize. I'm not aware of our position.
Every city around here has a chamber. Bethany has one.
Absolutely.
Yukon,
And we work with many of them.
Foreman, more. And then there are regional ones like Northwest Oklahoma City, North, South.
Right.
So there's a lot of.
Well, the good news is we get to work on the things that make a difference to people every day, which is the paycheck they get. So that's why I like doing what I do. So.
Okay, another question.
You have one right behind you. Oh,
Got
she's
one
right
right
here.
here. Stand up, please, do first.
My name's Rick, and I'm not real prepared here, and this happened before you came.
Okay.
But Bass Pro, for instance, I think it was $18 million some concession. I like Bass Pro, I like Johnny Morris, I don't blame him for going about it this way. Smart businessman. But I guarantee you, he would have came here without 18 million concessions. He didn't go to every city he's in because of that kind of concession. That's one issue I have. I appreciate what you do, I wanted to say that, and I think you're doing a great job. This chamber is there for a reason. But I'm like a lot of these people, I have issue with some of these concessions that the people would have came here anyway. And, you know, Academy had been here for how many years? We didn't give them any concession. I mean, that's like a slap in the face to somebody that's been here providing, you know, service like they have and employment like they have. I could go on, and there again, I wasn't real prepared here, but I just think it needs mention. You know, and I truly believe you when you say what you do, but and especially since you say it's not your job with the chamber, but I believe they do endorse people. For instance, Mick Cornett and Mary Fallon. I believe they openly. There's two good examples I could give you. I could go on, but I want to say I appreciate the chamber and what they do, but I do have problems and issues with things like I just mentioned in others. But
You know, you've only been here 13 months, you probably ought to come to High Noon for a year or so.
I would be happy to come more often. I had a great sandwich, so I will come back. Can I comment on that? Because I think that's an important thing that I like to make sure people know about. Many times we spend more of our time on existing companies than new ones. But the paper, and I'm not picking on the paper thinks it's more of a news story to write about GE coming than it is for them to write about a company that's been here 30 years that we've helped 6 times in 30 years with their expansion plans. We might help them connect with realtors to find the right building. We do all this for free, by the way. We don't charge for our services. Our companies invest in us to be able to provide that free of charge. In Bass Pro's case, actually, I hate to say it, but in fact, almost every location they've made for many years now has been made because the community wrote a huge check. Someone did that years ago, I'm not sure which community, but ever since, they've made almost every single decision based on that. And it may not be that they wouldn't have come to Central Oklahoma, but they might have gone to Norman versus Oklahoma City, which for us shouldn't matter. But for a government entity, that sales tax, as we know, is how they fund their operations. But I would bet that they did an analysis and they didn't give them nearly as much as they've gotten over the years. But that would be my premise. But please, if you know of an existing company that has growth issues or growth needs or is growing, tell them to call us, because those programs that we help them connect with are just as applicable to someone that's been here 50 years as someone who's been here 5 minutes. And that's something that doesn't usually get out because the paper, it's just not really a news story. But please, if you know of someone, or please tell people, I actually love to help existing companies because it's a lot more fun, because they already are here and they love it here and they're here for the good reasons.
Another question.
No, please.
Hi, I'm Kim.
Hi,
How
Kim.
does the chamber receive its funding in addition to membership dues?
Okay. That's only one piece of that's a good question, only one piece of our operations. We also have something that Reed's very active in called TRDC, Total Resource Development Campaign. And they go out and you can buy a table for our annual banquet for X. You can buy an ad in one of our brochures. You can do all sorts of sponsorships and things, and we raise money through that as well. So that's the second piece. We have a contract with the city of Oklahoma City to do economic development for them. And they give us money to do that work instead of them doing it. So to some person who said they like the private sector doing it, the reason that makes sense for the city is that we've made a commitment that we're not going to put any salaries or overhead into that number. So every dollar that they give us goes directly into the work we do rather than to overhead. So they don't have to hire staff and then use what's left over. We use other dollars to hire the staff, and then we use those dollars completely to do the work to help companies. So it actually makes those dollars go a lot further. We have a small contract with the county, Oklahoma City County, and I was just checking to see if that was my 14-year-old calling me. We have a small contract with the county, and that's totally focused on making sure that Tinker is golden and that they're solid and that continues to be a key piece of our economy. You may have remembered the GM building that we helped work with a number of partners. That's the kind of work we do for the county, is to help make sure Tinker has everything they need to be wildly successful. So those, I think, are the main pieces of our income.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Mike. Well, you've made so many claims today that,
Okay.
Chaparral,
Okay.
I don't think the chamber has anything to do with Chaparral.
I wasn't taking credit. I was just mentioning it was in the paper this week.
There you go. There was tons of things, and I think members of people in this room probably thought the chamber was taking credit. You mentioned H&H gun range. I doubt if we brought Leroy or Miles in here, the chamber has anything to do, and knowing Leroy and Miles, probably wouldn't want to have anything to do with.
We just recognize them as one of the fastest growing companies. I was just acknowledging that they're fast growing.
And I'm afraid that a lot of people got the perception, hey, the chamber is responsible for all of these wonderful things that have happened in Oklahoma City. I personally have the opinion the chamber is responsible for suppressing far more wonderful things that could have happened in Oklahoma City. The thunder. Does anybody in their right mind think that thunder wasn't coming to Oklahoma City when the legislature passed the bill on the same day that the NBA voted on it in New York? It was a done deal, and yet we heard all the legislative leaders, because I'm a legislator, you probably know that, say, we got to do this.
I don't know who you are, I'm sorry.
Mike Griffin.
Oh, okay.
So that's nuts. That's nuts. The thunder didn't come for economic incentives. That's crazy, and to claim that.
Well, I didn't say that.
Maps. What was the original maps for? You haven't been here that long, do you know?
A library.
See, I thought it was maps for kids, and it was.
That was the second one.
Okay, and so that second one had the kids' education proof. They may have new buildings, have their education proof. No, so I think the chamber ought to distance themselves from maps.
Okay.
You ask one of the people, how do we know they wouldn't have come here without the incentives? Here's the question that we should ask: how do we know they wouldn't have come without the incentives? Well, not they needed them. They didn't need them, obviously.
I mean, there's so the Presbyterian Health Foundation you mentioned. Gee, I just, the 1st of October, because they're doing so poorly, they had to sell themselves to the University of Oklahoma so they could get $80 million from the University of Oklahoma. And we're going to say PHF is a wonderful model, and the Chamber's promoting it. That's nuts. I2E, the biggest socialistic organization in the state of Oklahoma. And all they do is take my money, her money, his money, and your money, and give it away to other people. So what the Chamber does is they're tapped in to the socialistic form of government, taking taxpayer dollars and giving it to people, and then saying, look at all the wonderful things we've done for Oklahoma City. If you give me half your pay, I bet I could do a lot of wonderful things for Oklahoma City too. I bet I could lots of things. The Indian Cultural Center. I'm surprised at that. It's the first time I've ever heard the name of one of the donors that is committed to putting up $40 million, Clay Bennett. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? We've given him $300 million for the Thunder and for arenas and everything else. What's another $40 million? Plus, it's right down there. But my question. Oh, okay. Okay. Tell me about the creative class and the progressive class, and the people that you have that write articles for those. What the creative class, what the progressive class is, and then I'll have a follow-up.
Well, there's an author who wrote a book a few years ago. I actually met him once in Pittsburgh when I lived there. His name is Richard Florida. He lives in Toronto. He believes that where most of the innovation is happening, and I actually don't like him as a person, so I'm not defending him, that the creative class are those people who go out and create the tech jobs and are the people who can move anywhere they want because they have opportunities anywhere they want. And his premise is that communities that create the environment that makes those people want to be a part of it, those are the places that are going to win in the future economy. That's his premise. He's written about 5 books on it. So I actually don't like his premise completely. I'm not sure about the other progressive group that you mentioned. I've not heard that used in economic development terms.
I appreciate that. So Richard Florida, and I hope people go Googling up today, is a flaming gay liberal activist.
Actually, I know he is probably the hottest girlfriend I've ever met in my life.
I don't care.
Okay.
He is a homosexual liberal activist. And that is promoted on his website. And the creative class to him are the liberal homosexual individuals. And he believes those are the people that are creative. And he's been to Oklahoma City. He was here at a deal with Brad Henry. I've got pictures of him that Brad Henry tried to distance himself from. But when we see, the members of this room see, and the community sees, stories about the creative class, that's just a code word, the homosexual agenda in the state of Oklahoma. Do you think that has anything to do with what's made Oklahoma great, or do you think distancing ourselves from that kind of a radical agenda is what makes Oklahoma great?
It's a very loaded question. I'm assuming I have no way of answering it without making you angry. So, what he's talking about is Richard Florida in his first book talked about places that were doing well, and he drew the connection that many of the places that he felt, in his opinion again, his opinion only, he's one person, he's a professor at a university, that places that were very diverse and had hospitable places for the gay community in our country were places that were, again, seemed to be a signal that would be a way to figure out whether a place would be successful or not. You would be amazed, maybe not, at the tens of thousands of mayors and everyone else who thinks that that's not true. It doesn't matter what I think. I work for the community and I work for the chamber, and our job is to create opportunities here. Whether that person that has that job is gay or not is not our business. So I'm not sure. I don't think there's anyone in our community that, and the chamber certainly does not take Richard Florida's word for gospel. We're doing the blocking and tackling that helps make, hopefully, companies that are here already get bigger and more successful. And please don't think that anything I said was taking credit. What I was trying to share with you is what's going on in the marketplace. I'm personally very committed to, there's not a single project that happens in this community that doesn't have probably 10 partners involved. both government and the private sector, maybe educational institutions, all sorts of people are involved always. So many of these projects we may not have worked on, I wanted to bring you the story of what I see happening in our market, and we only work with part of them because there's only so many hours in the day, and some people don't need incentives, some people have not asked for incentives. We don't shop them, but when someone asks about it, because they're legally there, whether you agree or not, they currently are legally there, we walk them through the process to tell them what they can get and what they can't get.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are you involved in any way, I'm Elroy, are you involved in any way in this Trans-Canada pipeline coming through Oklahoma and possibly giving us an added 2,000 employees? If you are you pressuring the president to issue a permit?
I'm not sure if our federal team is involved in that one specifically, but anytime there's an opportunity for jobs, we try to be involved or be encouraging. We may not be directly involved, we may be the third partner on the left, but we try to, sometimes we're in the lead, sometimes we're not. Those jobs are not specific. I serve 10 counties, so unless those jobs are in the 10 counties, it probably falls to another one of our partners to see that happen. But I can again check. Our legislative agenda on the federal level is much smaller than it is on the regional, or excuse me, the state level, because we try to focus more of our time at the state level.
Okay, we have a question about a play that's coming here in the month of December, I believe it is. It is
like a theatrical play?
Yes, it's,
okay.
It's in the Civic Center, Oklahoma City Civic Center.
Okay.
It is very, very anti-Christian and pro-gay and demeans Christ in the nastiest ways.
Okay.
Do you know anything about this play? And is this chamber behind this one?
No, and I don't believe we have an arts agenda other than we want to see the arts be successful in our marketplace. I know some of our leadership is very active with the symphony and things like that. The Civic Center is a jewel in our crown. Now, whether there's a play there that we wouldn't agree with, I think the best way to handle that is just not go. And if it's not something you like, don't go. I have a daughter who goes to UCO. She's a musical theater major, and she's got one of the most beautiful, now I'm her dad, so take it all with a grain of salt. I think she has the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. And she wants to be an actress for a living, and I'd love to see her do that here in central Oklahoma rather than some other part of the country when she finishes up school. So unfortunately, there are things that I don't agree with. I just don't go to them. And they may not bring another one in if it fails miserably financially. But the chamber doesn't go and get involved in individual things like that usually.
As a Christian, when they demean the name of my Lord, it makes me very upset. If I was Islamic and they were doing something that was contrary to Allah, the city would come apart. You would have more than you could handle just trying to keep the top on the city. But when it demeans Christ, who is my Savior, it's like, well, let's just not go. That doesn't cover it for me.
Well, I mean, I work at a chamber of commerce. I don't work at a church. I have a personal faith. My dad's a minister. I'm very active in a congregation here in the community. I met my wife at church, so we're very active as a family. I'm not sure I'm really in a position to share an opinion because the chamber doesn't. I'd be speaking out of turn for our leadership.
I guess the question will be, does the chamber support the Arts Council? And you said that you're...
Well, Allied Arts is a campaign. I give money every paycheck to them. We had a campaign like the United Way for Allied Arts, and I think those dollars get spread out among the symphony and the ballet and groups. I don't know whether that play's getting some of it or not, but...
Well, if you collect money and support the arts, does the chamber not have any say? Can they not say, this is not something we want to support? We want to support the conservative Christian community and not something that destroys that? Is that, do you have?
Well, I haven't, and I'm not.
For the chamber, I'm not talking about personally, the chamber.
I don't know that it's our position to pick winners and losers in that race. I personally, I personally think that our God is much stronger than one play, and that a play will be gone in a couple weeks, and that people very few people will be swayed by it, and it's our job to make sure that we engage people constructively about our faith so they'll want to be a part of it too. So that's Kurt, that's not a chamber position.
Another question.
I've got two questions. You said a little bit ago that the homosexual community brings quite a bit of economic prosperity to the community. Now, there's only supposed to be like 1 to 3% of the people that are homosexuals, and they are taking and starting to rule over the Christian community and the conservative community. So how can someone support that kind of agenda if they want to take over?
Okay, let me share what I shared before. This is real important.
Let's talk about the
Well, one is, I think,
controversial
one thing
thing.
candidly, I don't think the chamber has a position on that. We're talking about issues that really don't come up in our conversation at work or our organization. I mentioned there's a professor at a school who wrote a book who said that. I didn't say I believed that.
Okay, next question.
Okay. You also said that the successful businesses have to have government in as part of their success. And when you named that there was 10 partners or...
Oh, well, yes, they can be involved in a project that we're working on. They don't always, but they can be.
But the way you said it, or the impression I got from it was that a person cannot be successful or have a successful business independently.
Well, no, that I know there was a national...
That's the impression you gave.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll restate it. When we work on a project, let's say a company comes to us and says, I'm thinking of doing X, Y, and Z. We pull anyone and everyone who has a role to play in that project. It may be a banker. It may be a real estate broker. It may be the planning department who issues permits at the city. They have to get their permits to build their building. It may be a surveyor. It could be a state legislator who we invite to help us sell why they should locate in the area. So what I mean is that we involve anyone and everyone, whether they're government or not, at the table that makes sense for that project. I don't want anyone to think that when I go home at night I go, look what I did all by myself, because we never do that. So I apologize for giving you that impression, but there are things where government does play a role, and it's usually around the regulation part of building a building safely or something like that.
And one more question, this will be the last question.
Jimmy, good to see you.
Be nice.
He already introduced himself to me earlier.
My name's Jim, and I'm impressed by the diversity here. How many people have been a member of the chamber in the past? You ought to join the chamber and get your input into it, I think. I'm a little bit populist, and I've been a member of the chamber, and I share your views on these political things. But I think the chamber does a great job in promoting this country, and we need to input these minor things that we have against them. But thank God that we have the freedom of diversity and speech in this country.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I'll be happy to come back and give you an update anytime. And please keep doing what you're doing, because it makes us a very, to Woody's point earlier, it makes us the kind of place that many people want to be a part of.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Kurt,
you
for being here. We appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna call it done right now. There's not enough time to start another conversation, but we will be back here next Friday at noon for the High Noon Club. Please come be with us.